The day Amber gave birth, no one in the family bothered to tell me. I only found out later, from someone outside the family. I didn't say a word. I just swallowed the disappointment and stayed outside that hospital room for 24 straight hours. In the middle of the night, I wanted to check if my grandson needed a diaper change. Amber looked at me with disgust and asked if I'd even washed my hands. My husband and son stood by, silent as if they hadn't seen or heard a thing. Instead, they told me to take good care of her. Fine. If none of them saw me as worth a shred of respect, then I had nothing left to hold on to. The next morning, I packed my bags and booked a trip. You're going on a trip right after Amber gave birth? Who's supposed to take care of her and the baby? Have you completely lost your mind? Mom, what were you thinking? Amber's still recovering, and this is when she needs you most. She's going to hate you for the rest of her life. I looked at Frank and Jason, both glaring at me like I'd committed some unforgivable crime. All I felt was a deep, aching emptiness. I married Frank when I was 20, had Jason at 21, and for the past 30 years, I've run this household like a tireless machine. Cleaning, cooking, organizing, sacrificing. And yet all my efforts have been taken for granted, treated like background noise in their lives. I turned to Jason and asked, aside from being the one who cooks your meals and scrubs your laundry like a live-in maid, have you ever once acknowledged me as your mother to anyone? I tried to change your baby's diaper, and Amber made me put on disposable gloves first. Do you really think I'm that filthy? I've been the one looking after your newborn around the clock for over 20 days. Has anyone in this house ever asked if I'm tired? And the moment I leave for one single day, you hire 2 full-time nannies to help Cynthia take care of the baby? Cynthia spent barely a day here and you're already worried about her being exhausted? Jason avoided my gaze, his voice weak and defensive. Mom, can you not be so sensitive? Amber's already unhappy with you. Everyone knows postpartum care is the priority here. I'm your only son. Aren't you afraid I might stop taking care of you in the future? What a joke. So this was my son, the boy I raised with everything I had. Married less than 6 months and he's already thinking about cutting me off. I let out a laugh. Then just take care of Cynthia when she's getting old and leave me alone. I'll just check myself into a nursing home. Jason, frustrated that I wasn't backing down, turned to Frank and snapped, Dad, say something. Cynthia's been taking care of Amber every day and she's exhausted. Frank's face darkened. Helen, what do you want from us? Are you trying to tear this whole family apart? Oh, come on, I said, my voice calm but cutting. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? Tell me, who even told me Amber was in labor? Who asked me when you booked a $15,000 postpartum suite? I'm your wife. I'm your mother. I pointed at both of them, my voice trembling with rage. But to either of you, have I ever really been seen as a living person? The day Amber gave birth, I heard it from someone else, not from you. And still I didn't complain. I even stayed up late making soup to bring to her. But your wife said I was nothing more than the housemaid. Said I was filthy. Then she poured the soup I made straight into the trash. When she humiliated me like that, both of you just stood there like statues. Not one word from either of you. Jason snapped, clearly irritated. Mom, can you stop dragging up the past already? Amber just had a baby. Her emotions are unstable. If I criticize her over something like that and it affects her milk supply, then what? The bitterness in my heart deepened. All I'd done was speak honestly about how I felt. But to them I was just making a scene. My hands clenched into fists. So when I just wanted to hold the baby and she said I was dirty, what exactly did she mean by that? Jason grew more agitated. You're in the kitchen all day. You reek of grease and smoke. It's nauseating. Honestly, even I can't stand the smell, let alone a newborn. I slammed my hand on the table. Then why is it that when you're eating the meals I cook, you don't seem to mind how dirty I am? My voice cracked. The lump in my throat made it almost impossible to speak. Frank finally stood up and said coldly, You're too emotional right now. This isn't the time to talk. Calm yourself down. Make more of that vegetable soup tonight and roast a chicken. Have it at the hospital by 6 sharp. Postpartum mothers need proper nutrition and the hospital food isn't enough. You should cook something decent. Cynthia can't go hungry either. You know she gets dizzy and nauseous if she skips a meal. It'd be better if you delivered dinner early. Then the two of them stormed out, slamming the door behind them. I sat there, trembling, unable to hold back the tears any longer. I buried my face in my arms and sobbed, Loud, heart-wrenching sobs. The more I cried, the more suffocated I felt. I gave up everything to marry Frank, even when everyone in my family was against it. He had nothing, just empty hands and empty promises. I stayed by his side through every struggle, helped him build his company from the ground up. When he said he wanted a traditional wife and mother, I gave up my career and became a full-time homemaker. I dedicated my life to this family, only to be treated like an afterthought. Neither of them ever really saw me as a person. And now I'm 50 years old. It took me half a lifetime to finally see who they truly are, selfish to the core. I sat alone in the living room thinking for hours. Then at 6:05 my phone rang. It was Jason. "You're 5 minutes late. Where's the dinner? What the hell are you trying to pull?" he growled. I answered quietly, calmly, "I'm your mother, not your maid." I said coldly, "If your wife didn't eat, then what the hell are you doing as her husband? What about your beloved mother-in-law? What's she doing? Are you suddenly disabled? Or are you just too damn stingy to buy your wife a meal?" Jason was stunned. He'd never heard me speak to him like that in his entire life. After a beat he snapped out of it and shouted, "You're insane. You've completely lost it. I'll have Dad talk to you." But I hung up before he could finish. Then I blocked both of their numbers. I booked a flight, 5 days from now. Then I walked into the bedroom and started packing my bags. I'd barely folded a couple of shirts when Frank's driver showed up at the door. "Ma'am, there you are," he said, surprised. "Mr. Dawson's been calling you nonstop and thought something had happened. He asked me to come check on you." Right in front of me he called Frank again and handed me the phone. I didn't want to make things difficult for him, so I took the call. The voice on the other end was already brimming with irritation. "Helen, could you stop with the theatrics? It's been the whole damn afternoon. Are you still not done? You haven't gone on a vacation in over 20 years, and you suddenly get the urge now? You know Cynthia can't stand the smell of grease, but she loves your lemon roast chicken. Are you seriously going to let her go hungry on purpose?" The anger I'd managed to bottle up flared all over again. I dropped all pretense and snapped, "Tell me, Frank, am I your wife or is she? She can't stand kitchen smells, so I'm supposed to slave away for her? Do I owe her something? If you care so much about her stomach, go cook for her yourself. Helen, you've completely lost your mind. You're delusional. Get help." Frank slammed the phone down before I could beat him to it. I hated myself for not hanging up faster. I handed the phone back to the driver. He looked at me, clearly uneasy. "Ma'am, is everything okay?" "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile. "But from now on I'll probably need your help a lot more. If either of those two ever call you asking where I am, tell them this. If I dropped dead today, it still wouldn't be any of their business." The driver glanced at me, stunned. He left with a confused expression, turning to look back at me 3 times before getting into his car. After all, I was the one everyone in this household had called the perfect homemaker for years. But today, I finally stopped playing that role. That evening, neither Jason nor Frank came home. Normally, I would have called them dozens of times, urging them to come back. But tonight, I didn't make a sound. I spent the entire day basking in the sun in the garden. It was warm. Above me, the stars shone brightly. Before, without them around, I couldn't sleep at night. But tonight, before 10 o'clock, I was already in a deep sleep. I woke up at 5 in the morning. After washing up, I put on my yoga gear and went out for a run. Some of the neighbors who I knew in the block looked at me surprised. They said I seemed different today. Normally, at this hour, I'd still be at home making breakfast for Frank and Jason, never stepping outside. After preparing breakfast and making sure they ate, they'd leave for work. And then I'd begin cleaning the house. Day after day, the same routine. People around here often say I'm a workaholic. When it came to taking care of the kids and Frank, I did everything myself, never leaving anything to others. Frank's business partners often told him that their wives should learn from me. Frank, on the other hand, would always frown and say I had no other talents, that I couldn't compare to others. He forgot that, in the early days of his business, I was the one who stood by him, helping him negotiate deals. But today I was different. This morning I ran for 40 minutes in the neighborhood, sweating profusely. When I got home, I took a hot shower and prepared myself a nice breakfast. I sat in the garden, enjoying the view, listening to music and savoring my peaceful time. But when I opened my phone and saw the new photo Cynthia had posted on social media, I almost got a heart attack. In the photo, Frank, who'd never so much as touched a frying pan, was in the kitchen cooking. One picture showed last night's dinner, a lavish meal he'd prepared himself, made with the freshest ingredients. Another showed him this morning, carefully brewing coffee for Cynthia. I stared at the comments beneath the post, every single one praising Frank, showering him with admiration and likes. I hesitated for a moment, then typed a comment. Married over 20 years, and this is the first time I've learned my husband has a culinary certificate. What a shame, I've never had the privilege of tasting Frank's cooking. Not long after, Frank stormed through the front door, slamming it shut behind him. Helen, what the hell are you trying to do? I calmly set down my coffee and looked at him. That's a question I should be asking you. Frank ripped off his tie and threw it hard onto the floor. We've been together for 30 years. What do you have to be jealous about? You didn't want to cook for Cynthia, so I did. Why are you acting crazy about it? Cynthia's crying now thanks to you. Crying? I let out a quiet laugh. What exactly did I say that wasn't true? Helen. He flipped the table. My breakfast scattered across the floor, a mess of eggs, toast and coffee, lying there like discarded scraps. In that moment it struck me, this was exactly how Frank saw me. Just like that breakfast. Disposable, unimportant, easily tossed aside. I looked up at him, calm and silent. Frank must have realized he'd gone too far. He avoided my gaze, muttering, "Stop making a scene. Everything I'm doing is for our son, for this family." I didn't say a word. That silence only made him angrier. Helen used to be so gentle. We've been married for 3 decades and everyone says you've been the perfect wife, the rock behind this family. So why are you falling apart now just when Amber needs us most? My quiet seemed to rattle him more than yelling ever could. He continued, "Forget about that trip. I'll hire 2 more nannies to help with Amber and Cynthia. You just stay home and cool off. When Amber's discharged, she'll be coming home. She wants your cooking, so you'll move in to take care of her." Jason wrote up a list of dietary guidelines for postpartum care. He's sending it to your phone. Memorize it. On his way out, Frank bent down and picked up his tie. He smoothed it out and carefully folded it, slipping it into his jacket pocket. Jewel blue with diagonal white stripes. His least favorite color. And yet today he folded it with care, as if it were something valuable. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from Jason. "Mom, Dad probably already talked to you, right? Here's a list of things to keep in mind. Amber and her mom Cynthia have been pampered their whole lives. They've never done housework. So when you're cooking, make sure you ask what they want to eat. Amber prefers light, mild flavors, but Cynthia likes spicy dishes. Amber and the baby's clothes should be washed by hand. Cynthia's can go in the machine." Jason sent me over 30 messages in one breath. He remembered every tiny preference his wife and mother-in-law had. But he never remembered my birthday. I replied, "Well, today I finally learned you had so much to say to me. Funny, until now you've never spoken more than 3 sentences to me unless I asked first." Jason didn't even catch the sarcasm. He just kept giving instructions. "Mom, next Tuesday is Amber's discharge day. She's been craving chicken soup. You should get the ingredients ready in advance. Oh, and just a heads up, Amber's been moody lately since the delivery. If she complains about not wanting your food again, just cook it early and leave it on the table before she sees you. If you're not around, she'll probably eat it." I let out a soft, bitter laugh. I didn't respond, because I knew something Jason didn't. Next Tuesday was the day I'd be leaving for my trip. Frank had told me to take some time to cool off, but interestingly he never reached out again. The man who rarely ever came home on time now clocked in and out of work like a model employee. He spent every evening at Jason's house showing off his newfound culinary passion, playing the role of doting father and husband-to-be to Cynthia. Frank was terrified I'd do or say something that might upset his precious Cynthia again, so he and Jason both quietly removed me from viewing their social media updates. Every day I watched from Amber's public posts instead, scrolling through photos of their happy little family, smiling, cozy, complete. A perfect picture of joy without me. Tuesday came quicker than expected. As soon as I arrived at the airport, Frank called. "Where are you?" he asked. "I'm at the airport," I said simply. "Stay there," he ordered. "Jason's on his way to see you." I'd almost got to the security checking point when I saw Jason walking toward me, pushing my mother in a wheelchair. "Grandma," he said dramatically, Please talk some sense into my mom. Something's clearly wrong with her. She picked the worst possible time to go on vacation. Jason, your grandmother's heart condition isn't well. Why are you tormenting her like this? I quickly run through the security checking line, and couldn't help but slap Jason across the face. He stared at me in shock. I had raised him for 22 years and had never once hit him. But not for a second did I regret it. Mom. Jason stammered. I choked up. My mother waved her hand at me. Sweetheart, I know you're upset. Go wherever you want. Don't worry about us. Take your time to feel better, and if you decide to divorce, your father and I will support you. Grandma. Jason screamed. My mother struck him on the other side of his face. This slap is for your mom, she said. How could I have raised such an ungrateful brat like you? Hearing this, I felt like I had no more ties holding me back. With resolve, I walked straight toward the gates. Jason's calls echoed behind me, but I didn't respond. Under the same roof, Frank, who hadn't spoken more than 10 words to me in 10 days, sent me a long message. Helen, you said you needed space, but is this really how you're handling things? Why wasn't the house cleaned before Amber came home today? Why wasn't there any food? How could you leave for a vacation now? Why didn't you follow the instructions Jason sent you? Were my words just background noise to you? I've been working my ass off outside earning money and you can't even handle the simple stuff at home. What use are you to me? And you know my mom's been struggling with her health, needing care. You've been responsible for this for 10 years. Now you suddenly decide to drop it. Where do you expect me to find someone else to take over? Clearly not satisfied with just texting, Frank called me, unleashing his anger. I replied, didn't you always think Cynthia would be the perfect wife? Let her take care of your mom. I've been taking care of you and this family for 30 years, and you've treated me like I'm invisible. Now that your maid is gone, you're in a panic. But let me make it clear, I am not your servant. When I hung up the phone, I felt a strange calm wash over me. I knew I was about to begin my own journey, and I wasn't going to let these people disrupt my peace. There were two places I had always wanted to visit in my life: a coastal town in Maine and a ranch in Montana. I'd heard the Montana plains were the most beautiful just before autumn, so I booked a vacation there, wanting to relax while the weather was still warm. I hired a local private guide to take me through the ranches and small towns, giving me a taste of the Western lifestyle and local cuisine. The air was so clean it felt like it had just been washed, and the sky stretched endlessly as though it could pull your heart wide open. Every night I went to bed at 10, falling into a deep, uninterrupted sleep until 7 the next morning. I had never slept so soundly before. This slow, peaceful life was exactly what I'd longed for when I was younger. The past 30 years of my life had been consumed by the kitchen, laundry room, household duties, and endless mundane tasks. Now every day I visited 1 or 2 sightseeing spots and spent the rest of my time horseback riding and walking on the ranch. At night I sat on the grass, gazing at the stars, feeling as though I had returned to my childhood. Meanwhile, Cynthia wasn't exactly idle. She posted again on social media, subtly hinting at me. Some people really have it made. Husband who loves them, a son who's dutiful, and Amber's mother-in-law just goes on vacation right after Amber gives birth. When will I ever have the freedom like Cynthia? I couldn't help myself. I commented, Cynthia, you really have a high opinion of me. I've raised my son for over 20 years and he remembers every little thing about you, but can never remember my birthday. I've been married to my husband for decades and I didn't even know he could cook. Looks like you two are doing well. Cynthia immediately replied, what do you mean by that? Jason treats me well because of our daughter. Lately your husband has been working so hard, going between the company, the hospital, and Amber's place. He hasn't had a moment to rest. I didn't reply, but soon after Frank called. Helen, what exactly are you doing? Cynthia and I are clean. Delete that comment. I felt my temples throb. All those rumors about Frank that I had ignored over the years resurfaced in my mind. Frank was good-looking, a classic rugged American face with a body that stayed fit over the years, never gaining weight. It was his appearance that had drawn me to him in the first place. After marriage there had been whispers. People said they saw him out with other women, traveling together, speaking intimately. But at home he always acted the devoted family man, participating in every household task, rarely staying out late. So I never took those rumors to heart. But on the night Jason got engaged, I happened to overhear a conversation between relatives in the next room. Frank's been having an affair with Cynthia for years. After getting bored with her, he introduced Cynthia's daughter to his son, keeping Cynthia close this way. My God, he's disgusting. Someone else warned, keep it down, don't let Helen hear. But the words had already cut deep, embedding themselves in my heart. In that moment, everything I had refused to think about over the years clicked into place. My instincts told me those rumors weren't just baseless gossip. On the 8th day of my trip, Frank's assistant called, asking when I'd be coming home. I lazily said, I'll return when I feel like it. Before long, Jason called, shouting at me right away, Mom, it's been 8 days. How much longer are you going to stay? Have you had enough fun? The baby's crying every day and Amber and Cynthia can't take care of him. The nanny's food is awful. I've begged you. Come home now. I hung up without a second thought. On the 10th day, Frank called again, his voice as calm as if he were discussing business. Helen, do you even care about our marriage anymore? Without hesitation, I asked, when did you and Cynthia start? There was a brief silence on the other end before he erupted. Have you lost your mind? You're just making trouble. I didn't press further. I already knew the answer. He tried to control his rage, listing his so-called conditions for keeping our marriage intact. If you want to continue this marriage, he said, you must do the following. First, take care of my daily needs, including meals and living arrangements with no complaints. Second, don't expect any affection from me. Unless it's a social event, stay out of my way at home unless I call for you. Third, be very careful with everything you do and say. Don't expect me to be kind and gentle. When I want something, you must act immediately. Fourth, don't do anything in front of others, especially Amber, that might damage my reputation. After he finished, he looked down at me as if he were giving me a chance. He thought I was still the same submissive housewife who wouldn't dare divorce him. He was wrong. I wasn't that woman anymore. As for me, I spent my days traveling, reconnecting with old friends, and meeting with one of the top divorce lawyers in town. On the 20th day of my trip, I received a call from Tina, Frank's sister. Helen, when are you coming back? Mom's been making a scene every day, yelling at night, refusing to eat. We're all losing our minds. They'd been taking care of her for just over 20 days and they were ready to crack. But I had cared for her for 10 years. They always felt it was my duty to care for her. After all, I didn't have anything else to do, so I might as well do something meaningful to pass the time. I responded directly, Tina, your mom is your responsibility, not mine. Doesn't your brother always say Cynthia is the perfect woman for him? Why doesn't he let her take care of your mom? To my surprise, Tina didn't argue with me. Instead, she went straight to her brother. The siblings fought fiercely over Cynthia. Later, she called me again and her tone was completely different. Helen, I'm sorry for what I said earlier. Frank's a bastard. He actually yelled at me over that woman, even threatened to hit me. He said you're just the servant we hired to take care of the house, and that woman is the princess he's spoiling. If you don't come back soon, he really will divorce you. Helen, don't go back. Let him see the true face of that woman. Her attitude surprised me. Tina had never been kind to me before, always picking at me for something. But whatever the reason, I was grateful for her support as long as she didn't cause any more trouble. On the 30th day of my trip, just as I was preparing to board my return flight, Frank's assistant called. Mrs. Dawson, Mr. Dawson asked me to inform you. If you don't return home within the next 2 days, you'll be receiving a formal divorce notice from his attorney. I responded calmly, perfect. My attorney has already sent his notice. Tell him to check his mailbox. When the plane landed, I didn't go back to Frank's mansion. Instead, I headed straight to the old house my parents had left me. Compared to that sprawling estate of thousands of square feet, this place was modest. Smaller, quieter. But it was mine. Every square inch of it belonged to me and no one else. After Frank's career took off, our marriage had slowly dissolved into nothing more than mutual obligations. Toward the child, toward the extended family. Every time we argued, he'd throw it in my face. This house is mine. If you don't like it, leave. Once he even sneered, even a dog would earn some affection after 20 years. You're not even worth that. I used to tell myself those were just words spoken in anger. But now I know, they were exactly what he meant. This house, my parents' early investment, was something I'd always kept as a backup. I'd done a bit of renovation here and there, thinking they might use it in their later years. Now it was my safe haven. I spent 2 days setting it up, furnishing it with everything I needed, getting it just the way I liked. I was so exhausted I'd fall asleep the moment my head hit the pillow, then wake at 5 each morning to jog in the park. That freedom, that quiet, that sense of control, it was a kind of happiness I'd never imagined was possible. I even went to a dealership to buy myself a car. But just as I was about to swipe my card, the sales associate gave me a hesitant look. "I'm sorry, ma'am, it looks like your account has been frozen." I froze, stunned. Seconds later my phone rang. "Frank." "Helen," he said smugly, 20 years, I've spoiled you too much. You want a divorce? Fine. Let me show you what life after divorce really feels like." His voice oozed with spiteful satisfaction and it sent a chill down my spine. 20 years of domestic life had dulled my edges, worn down my instincts. But now I was wide awake. I called my best friend Susan and asked her to wire me $50,000, just in case. She was fuming on the other end of the line. Men. Every damn one of them turns into a bastard the second they get some money. They forget who stood by them when they had nothing. I knew something was off when Jason got married. Frank was practically falling over himself to please Cynthia. I knew he was up to no good. And now we know, they've been sneaking around all along. Frank just assumed you'd never leave him. That even if you found out, you'd choose to stay and play dumb. I sighed. I guess I was too weak for too long. Susan's voice softened. "Honey, don't beat yourself up. I've already scheduled a meeting for you with the best divorce attorney in the city. Don't worry about the money, I've got it covered. You just focus on taking care of yourself." I also told my parents everything. They didn't scold me. They didn't ask why I hadn't left sooner. All my father said was, "Don't be afraid. If you've made up your mind, then don't look back. Just keep going." That day I went to the hospital to visit Frank's mother, Diana. Just as I turned into the hallway near her room, I saw Frank and Cynthia walking out together. "Frank, your mom's mattress is too firm. It's giving her pressure sores," Cynthia said, tugging off her gloves as she spoke. "I just treated them a little, but you really need to tell the caregiver to be more attentive. She's too old to handle this kind of discomfort." Frank looked touched, gently holding her wrist. "You've been amazing. Really. If Helen doesn't come back soon, I'll make sure she sees everything you've been doing." Cynthia gave him a soft smile. "Helen's not had it easy either. I've already told Amber not to be too hard on her." Frank's face instantly hardened. "Don't mention her to me. Only you and Amber have the heart to be kind. Anyone else would have given up on her long ago. She's just spoiled because I indulged her too much." I stood around the corner, the chill in my chest spreading deeper by the second. Then, as if nothing had happened, I heard Frank say casually, "Anyway, let's not talk about unpleasant things. Here's a check for $20,000. Pick out something nice for Amber and yourself. You've worked hard lately." I nearly laughed aloud. So that's how he valued us. I took care of him, our son, his mother, for years. He'd give me no more than $3,000 a month as spending money, while still expecting me to run errands for his aging mother. And Cynthia? She spends 15 minutes in a hospital room and walks away with 20 grand. Every time I wanted to buy something for myself, he'd say I was being wasteful. I didn't go in. I turned around and went home instead. On the way, I called Susan and asked her to help me contact some second-hand furniture and luxury consignment services. It was time to clear out everything in that house that belonged to me. By the time I got home, Susan was already there. She saw the boxes in my hand and asked, "You're really doing this? Selling everything?" I nodded. Out with the old, in with the new. All these years, everything I saved and worked for was spent on people who were never truly mine. Frank cared more about appearances than anything else. He used to say he fell in love with me at first sight, because I was attractive. Even after becoming a housewife, I never stopped taking care of myself. I stayed in shape, kept my appearance polished. Whenever he needed a trophy wife at his side, I'd wear the dresses he picked, carry the handbags he bought. But all of it, my clothes, jewelry, shoes, was never for me. It was all for show, to keep up the illusion of a perfect, happy family. Now those so-called treasures were nothing more than clearance items in my hands. It took me 2 days to sell everything that could be sold. And as soon as the money hit my account, I transferred it all to Susan's. Then I sent a short message to Frank. "I'm back." Less than 30 minutes later, he showed up at the house. The moment he stepped inside and saw the empty space, he froze. Where's everything? I looked at him calmly. Sold. You've lost your mind, he snapped, eyes burning. Barefoot, I strolled across the floor, my voice light and even. Crazy? No. I just felt like a little remodeling. This house was decorated 5 years ago, exactly the way you wanted it. In this entire space, the only parts that were ever really mine were the kitchen and the downstairs bedroom. Frank clenched his jaw. So this is what you came back with? A decision this foolish? You never intended to stay in this marriage, did you? I met his gaze, steady and unshaken. I've poured myself into this family for years. And for what? You've never respected me. You even froze my bank account. But that's fine. I assume you've received the court summons by now. Just then his assistant peeked in from the doorway, his voice awkward and low. Sir, the divorce papers from the court were just delivered. Well done, Helen. Frank growled, his jaw clenched in rage. I supported you for over 20 years and now you have the nerve to file for divorce? I'd like to see which lawyer in this city dares take your case. Out on the balcony, the table and chairs were still there. I calmly picked up my coffee and sat down, my tone as composed as if we were negotiating a business deal. Frank, I've spent over 2 decades caring for you and your son, and another 10 looking after your mother. I've managed every petty, thankless task in your household. You don't have to acknowledge any of it, but that doesn't mean my contributions amount to nothing. So this house and that $50,000 SUV under your name? They're mine. I stood by you from scratch, helped you host clients, manage social events, handle every detail of your life outside the office. You wouldn't have the success you do today without me. I deserve at least half the credit. I've already hired a professional asset evaluator. Your company's current market value is estimated at around $20 million. I don't want shares, but you'll be paying me $2.5 million in compensation. Frank's face turned a deep, furious shade. You're out of your mind. You've lost it completely. He turned and barked at his assistant, get me a psychiatrist fast. She needs a mental health evaluation. I didn't flinch. His outbursts weren't new to me, he'd been emotionally volatile for years. I used to excuse it. I don't anymore. I looked at him and asked sharply, when did you and Cynthia really start? Frank's eyes flickered, then he snapped, you're disgusting. I'm only helping Cynthia for Amber's sake. And what about your son? Don't you care about hurting Jason with this divorce? I stared at him. I don't care anymore. From now on I'd only care about myself. Frank still naively believed this was just another emotional outburst, that if he waited a few days I'd calm down and cave like I always had. But divorce has a way of revealing someone's true nature, and I had seen enough. When I heard he was spreading word about getting me a psychiatric evaluation, I knew I couldn't take any chances. I was genuinely afraid he might try to have me institutionalized just to silence me. So the next day I officially moved back into my own house and installed a full smart home surveillance system. I told my brother Mike, if you don't hear from me for 24 hours, call the police immediately. We had once been husband and wife, but now I had to think like a survivor. The court hearing was set for 2 months later. I told Frank clearly, he should accept reality and agree to my terms. That way we could part with dignity. He didn't reply. But Jason was the first to retaliate. He went straight to my mother and erupted in a tantrum. Grandma, how does she even have the nerve to come back? Amber just gave birth and she went off on vacation for a month. She didn't even come visit. And now she wants to divorce my dad? She wants to take over $2 million. Everything in that house is because of my dad's hard work. She spends his money every month and now wants part of his assets? What else does she even know how to do besides cooking and laundry? She's nothing but a glorified maid. She contributes nothing. And now she's hiding from me. Well, you can tell her I won't let her take a single dime from our family. If she crawls back home and resumes her duties, maybe I'll consider giving her a small allowance. He hadn't even finished when Mike stepped in and kicked him straight to the ground. You ungrateful little bastard. Mike roared. How dare you insult your mother like that? After everything she's done for you, this is how you repay her? My 6-foot-tall son stumbled, caught off guard, hitting the floor. He tried to put on a tough face but didn't dare fight back. She chose that life. I never forced her, he muttered defiantly. Bullshit. Mike snapped, boiling with rage. Listen to me, you only matter to this family because of your mother. Without her you're nothing. Not even worth a damn. Get the hell out. Jason scrambled to his feet, face flushed and humiliated. As he reached the door he saw me standing there. His expression changed instantly. He shifted from arrogance to pitiful dramatics in seconds. Mom, Uncle hit me. He should have hit you harder. Jason stared at me, clearly confused by my words, until another slap landed across his face. This time I used every ounce of strength I had. He staggered back, stunned, clutching his cheek. Mom, you actually hit me? I looked him square in the eye, my voice cold and steady. That's what you owed me. And from this day on I'm severing all ties with you. I am no longer your mother. Jason's face contorted in fury. He pointed a trembling finger at me. Fine. You'll regret this. In his mind, my so-called regret would probably come the moment Frank agreed to divorce me. But he had no idea. I'd never feared this moment. Not for a second. Outside the courthouse, Frank stood looking at me with a conflicted expression. Helen, how did we end up like this? If you felt the allowance I gave you wasn't enough, I can increase it. If housework's too tiring, we'll hire help. You can use my driver whenever you want. I didn't respond. I just stared at him with a mocking smile. His brows tightened. Are you really that set on leaving? I looked at him, my voice quiet but sharp. Did you and Cynthia meet 5 years ago? His eyes flickered just for a moment. I turned and started walking up the courthouse steps. Behind me he tried again. Fine. I admit we met 5 years ago. But there was nothing improper. You don't trust me. Can't you at least trust Amber's father? Men never tell the whole truth. And I knew exactly who held power in Cynthia's family. Her father was a mild-mannered, indecisive man. Someone who would rather pretend to be deaf than confront the truth. The divorce process was surprisingly smooth, almost suspiciously so. But I wasn't about to question a clean break. As I walked out of the courthouse and approached the waiting taxi, Jason jumped out of Frank's car, his voice dripping with contempt. Wow, Mom. You really did it. A housewife divorcing a man like my dad? Let's see how long you last out there on your own. Shut your mouth. Frank snapped, his voice louder and angrier than I'd ever heard. Jason froze, stunned, staring at his father like he was seeing him for the first time. Frank walked over to me and quietly said, "Let me give you a ride home." I shook my head. That won't be necessary. Goodbye, Frank. The cab pulled away slowly. In the rearview mirror I saw him still standing there watching me go. Maybe he was feeling regret. But that no longer mattered. When I got home, my parents were already waiting with a hot meal ready to celebrate. It was the first time in my life I had ever celebrated a divorce. And I had never felt so light, so free. At dinner, Mike suddenly grinned and said, "Helen, I have a little favor to ask." I looked at him. Go ahead. He smiled even wider. Can you take Mom and Dad on a trip? It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, but Rachel and I are always too busy to make it happen. Of course I knew, they weren't just trying to fulfill a wish. They were trying to help me heal, to give me a fresh perspective and a change of scenery. And I appreciated that more than they knew. I nodded and said, absolutely. The very next day Mike had already booked our trip to Napa Valley, a place my parents had always dreamed of visiting but never had the chance to. Rolling vineyards, a quiet luxury resort with natural hot springs, gourmet food and wine, a slow and peaceful rhythm of life. It was all exactly what we needed. Before we left, Mike discreetly slipped a check for $20,000 into my hand. This is for their travel expenses, he said softly. Thank you for taking care of them during the trip. I've already arranged the hotels and transportation. You just relax and enjoy. A warmth spread through my chest. I nearly teared up. Over the years, I had poured everything into my marriage, my son, and that house, often neglecting my own parents. Yet they had never once complained. Now, finally, I had the chance to truly give back to them, to simply enjoy life together. I only told Susan about the trip. She came to the airport to see us off in person, hugging me tightly and teasing, "When you get back, we're opening that studio we talked about, and you're going to be my business partner." Napa Valley was breathtaking. Every vineyard looked like a painting. My parents were glowing with happiness, and for the first time in years, I felt truly free again. Sipping wine in the afternoon sun, reading under the olive trees, taking photos, laughing without guilt. Time finally belonged to me again. A month later, out of nowhere, I received a message from Amber. Her tone was unusually soft. Helen, can I ask you something? What's going on between Frank and my mom, really? I replied coldly, you can ask your mother. Or Frank. Just don't come asking me. She sent another message. Jason knows he was wrong. His appetite's been awful lately, he only wants the food you used to make. But he's too proud to admit it. Would you consider coming back? For his sake? No, I typed back without hesitation. I've already cut ties with him. He's no longer my son. There was a pause, then a voice message popped up. It was Jason, his voice raised, furious. Fine. Don't come back. Nobody needs you anyway. I chuckled and set my phone down. That was the real him. A few days later my phone rang again. It was Frank's sister. The moment I answered, I heard her sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. I thought something terrible had happened, maybe their mother had passed away. But Tina called to tell me that her mother was still alive, though she and Frank were both nearly at their breaking points. Her symptoms of dementia were worsening, soiling herself, wandering aimlessly, shouting at night. It had become a constant struggle. He sent me a photo of Frank. He looked completely different, haggard and exhausted, unlike the last time I saw him. Helen, Tina said through her tears, my brother admits he's at fault. He asked me to apologize for him. You've always been the backbone of our family. Without you, everything would have fallen apart. Please come back. We need you. I looked out at the distant hills, my voice calm but firm. I cared for you all for 10 years. You've only been looking after your mom for a few days and you can't handle it? Did anyone ever think about how I felt? This company was built by me and your brother. He's been giving me $3,000 a month for expenses, and yet your whole family always says he's been supporting me. When Cynthia visited your mom in the hospital, Frank gave her a check for $20,000. Do you know how much Frank has spent on other women over the years? You can ask anyone else, but don't come to me. For Frank's sake, I had never spoken about the years of suffering I'd endured. But now I realized that if I didn't speak up, no one would ever know how much I had sacrificed for this marriage. Even after the divorce, I had to make them understand. The least they could give me was guilt. I ended the call right then. During the summer, Mike's family got some time off and decided to join us on vacation. We went hiking through the mountains, enjoying the warm sunshine and the peaceful nature around us. Meanwhile, Frank and Jason's lives had turned into utter chaos. Cynthia moved into Jason's luxury apartment, spending her days either at the spa or shopping, completely ignoring anything related to the household. Amber would ask her for help with the kids, but every time she did, Cynthia would complain about feeling unwell and refuse to help. When asked to buy anything, she'd say she didn't have the money. Jason, helpless, hired a nanny, but Cynthia always found something to complain about. She thought the nanny's salary was too high and that the nanny ate more than she did, constantly watching her like a thief. The most ridiculous thing happened when Jason's baby turned 3 months old. Cynthia, without thinking, gave the baby egg yolk. When Jason found out, he was furious. The baby had an allergic reaction and had to be hospitalized. When the doctor asked about the incident, Cynthia blamed the nanny, accusing her of not watching the child carefully enough. The nanny, livid, quit on the spot. Jason and Amber had a huge argument. Amber tried to defend her mother, but Jason had had enough. He threatened that Cynthia would never step foot in their house again. If anything happens to the baby, I'll go after your mother. Cynthia went running to Frank, crying, but he turned around and scolded Jason. Then, incredibly, Cynthia and her husband moved into my house. Her husband, though occasionally acting like a man, at least returned home for meals and could cook. But Cynthia didn't care about the house. She ignored everything. Frank had severe stomach issues, but Cynthia, who couldn't live without spicy food, tossed his stomach medication aside like trash. Frank still tolerated it. Until one day when Frank had to go on a business trip and Tina had something else to handle, leaving her mom in Cynthia's care for 2 days. Frank's mother, who suffered from dementia and was also paralyzed, couldn't care for herself. On the first day, Cynthia called a caregiver to handle the situation when her mother-in-law had an accident in bed. She refused to clean it up herself. On the second day, Cynthia spent all her time on her phone, completely neglecting Frank's mother. The poor woman tried to get out of bed on her own, but she fell and couldn't move, screaming in pain. The incident caught the attention of the neighbors, and the social services department was notified. When Frank found out, he rushed home, but Cynthia continued to deflect blame, saying she didn't expect his mother to move suddenly. She even tried to justify herself to Frank, saying, "I've never cared for a sick person. I have no experience. I couldn't take care of her." When Frank told me about this, I didn't react. This was the first time in over 20 years that Frank had put aside his pride and came to apologize. "Helen, I really know I've made a mistake. Please forgive me. Can you come back?" At that moment, Jason, sobbing uncontrollably, said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I realize now without you this family can't run." My parents, sitting beside me, looked at me with concern, afraid that I would jump out of one fire only to fall into another. My mind was clear. "You don't want me back, you just want your maid. If I go back, give it 2 months at most and everything will return to the way it was." Frank and Jason swore they had truly changed. But I didn't waver. One was in his 20s, the other in his 50s, time to wean them off dependency. I suggested they hire a professional housekeeper. So they did. Without Cynthia's interference, the nanny took good care of my grandson. But Amber and Jason began to grow distant. The smallest disagreements would spiral into fights. Frank decided to ask Cynthia to move out. He began remodeling the house entirely based on my preferences. "Helen," he said, "I was blind before. That money I gave to Cynthia, I'm taking it back. From now on you handle the household finances. I've already unfrozen your accounts. I wired you $1 million. Spend it however you like." So I remained unmoved. Mike nudged me on the side, half joking, half serious. "Helen, don't you dare go soft. I had already given the best 20 years of my life to that household. Whatever time I had left, I was going to make it mine. Bold, vivid, uncompromising. Marriage, once is enough to learn your lesson." I had no intention of jumping back into that fire. My parents saw how firm I was and they were finally at ease. Our time away had been beautiful, but it was time to head home. Frank and Jason somehow found out our flight details. They showed up at the airport in suits, holding bouquets, trying to put on their best act. Jason ran up to me teary-eyed and hugged me tight. "Mom, I'm sorry. I really mean it this time. You did everything for me and I just took it for granted." Frank followed with a low voice. "If you've come home, then come home for real. From now on you make the rules." I took the flowers, but I didn't go with them. Jason, confused, asked, "Mom, we've both apologized. It's been over half a year since you started this whole drama. How long do you plan to keep it going?" And just like that, there it was. The mask slipping off. That was the real him. Thankfully, I'd never placed my hopes on their apologies. I tossed the flowers into the trash and pushed my parents toward Susan's car. Mike turned to Jason. "You idiot. If you really understood what you did wrong, you wouldn't talk to your mom like that." Then he pointed at Frank. "And you, thinking she's just gonna come back to cook and clean for you again? Dream on. Don't forget, we only ever tolerated you two because of Helen." Frank and Jason didn't get their wish. Later, I heard they both lost their tempers on the ride home. And then not long after, Cynthia showed up at Jason's place. She casually helped herself to Amber's designer dresses and outfits. "You just had a baby," she said to Amber. "Your figure's not back yet. What's the point in keeping these? I'll put them to better use. Besides," she added, "Jason has money. If you want more, just buy new ones." Jason walked in while she was still bagging up Amber's things. Furious, he kicked both Amber and Cynthia out. Cynthia ran crying to Frank for help. He ignored her. Even Amber tried to talk to him, but Frank wouldn't meet with her either. Eventually, Frank got the money back. The full $500,000 he had given Cynthia. Because that's what men like him do. I scrimped and saved inside the home and he spent money on other women like water. And yet Frank thought this was some grand gesture. "Helen," he said, "I made good on my promise. I was blind before. These few months apart made me realize, only you hold this family together. Please, come home." I looked at him and replied evenly, "I gave the best years of my life to you. The rest of it, I'm investing in myself. I already made the choice to leave. That door won't reopen. You can ask me 1,000 times, the answer will never change." On New Year's Day, Susan and I officially opened our studio. That night we sat in the garden, sipping champagne, music playing softly, fireworks blooming across the city skyline. She raised her glass with a smile. "Congratulations on finding yourself again. May the rest of your life belong only to you. I clinked glasses with her, smiling in silence. Thanks to Susan's connections, the studio grew steadily and we landed our first clients quickly. Meanwhile, Jason and Amber reconciled. They reached a new agreement. Amber could visit her family, but no one else would interfere in their home again. Without my care, Frank's mother passed away just before spring. Perhaps finally she found peace. Frank was quietly remorseful. If we hadn't divorced, he said once, maybe Mom would have lived longer. He did manage to get back all the money he had given Cynthia. Amber even returned every gift that Frank had once given Cynthia's mother. As for Cynthia, there was no dramatic downfall. But she did fall seriously ill. Her family, aware now of what she had done, gradually stopped inviting her for holidays or gatherings. Her husband grew colder and more distant, slowly withdrawing what little affection remained. No scandal. No explosions. Just a slow, suffocating kind of isolation. Frank's assistant told me about all this one day while Jason stood in the backyard, holding his child, preparing dinner for me. I simply smiled. Frank still asked if I'd ever consider remarrying him. I gave him the same answer I always had, not in this lifetime. I would never again wear the chains of marriage for anyone. From now on I was simply me. Not someone's wife. Not someone's mother. Just a woman who had finally come home to herself, and could breathe freely at last.